Welcome to ACR Health's Nutrition Health Education Program. My name's Shirley, and I'm one of the educators that works in the program. This month, I want to talk to everyone about food labels. When I say food label, in case you don't know exactly what I'm talking about this nutrition facts label that's on the side or bottom or top of almost any product we buy in the United States. So today I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And I'm going to start with this infographic about food labels. So you'll notice at the top that the two labels are labeled the current and the new label. So the sheet's a couple years old and it came out when the new label was first rolling out. So at this point in time, they're really both the current label. I'll continue to talk about them as current and new, just to make it clear what we're talking about, but you will find both of these in stores at this point. So I want to make sure we cover both. The good news is they're very, very similar. The new label just has a couple of differences. So I will go ahead and jump right into this sheet. First, I want to talk about serving size. You'll see that that's labeled number 1. On both labels, you can find that at the top, everything is outlined on the new label, and then you can kind of see that it's in a similar spot on the current. So here you'll find out how much of this product should I be eating? How much do the people that made this product expect me to eat? And what the serving size really is important for is because if you're eating the correct serving size, everything on that label is correct about what you're eating. So if you're supposed to eat 2/3 cup, but you actually eat a full cup, just keep in mind that all these little numbers you're looking at are actually higher because you ate more than the box thought you were going to eat. So you can also find how many servings are in each container here. So that tells you that if you eat the correct amount, it's basically telling you how many times you can eat the correct amount. So I will go over the differences real quick. So under number 1, servings, it says, the number of servings per container and serving size declaration have increased in size and are now in larger and or bolder type. Serving sizes have been updated to reflect what people actually eat and drink today. For example, the serving size for ice cream was previously 1/2 cup and is now 3/4 cup. So some labels actually changed the numerical values on the label. That being said, if the new label was put out with those updated changes, those same numbers are still going to be on a current label. So the information you're looking at should never really be changing. It then says, there are also new requirements for certain size packages, such as those that are between 1 and 2 servings or are larger than a single serving, but could be consumed in one or multiple sittings. So what that means is, picture one of the sodas that you can buy at the gas station that's maybe like a whole liter. It's like the biggest bottle that a person would buy for themselves. If you look at the serving size, it might say that there's 1.5 servings in the bottle. It's hard to do that math. How do I know if I'm drinking 1.5 servings? So sometimes right on the front now, you'll see a little thing that says, if you drink the whole bottle, this is how many calories and how much sugar is in it. So that's what that paragraph's talking about. So underneath that on both labels, we have calories. On the new label, it is nice and big. That's the main change. They also took off the information related to calories from fat because you're about to read more information about fat right underneath. So they made that nice and big. So if you forgot your glasses in the store or anything like that, it should be pretty easy to see how many calories are in a serving of the food you're buying. Underneath calories, we have the section on fat, and that is on both labels. So on both, it starts with total fat, and then underneath, they'll often break down for you what kinds of fat feed into that total fat. So there's 4 kinds of fat. The first 2 are healthy fats. They're monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, but you can just say mono and poly. Then we have a fat that's kind of in the middle. That's our saturated fat. It's really not good for us. But it is in almost all animal products, so it is in our diet, so it's something we want to monitor. And then we also have trans fats, and those are fats that you really want to avoid. So labels will often let you know if there's a lot of saturated or trans fats in their products. I will read the little blurb under fats on the side. It says calories from fat has been removed because research shows the type of fat consumed is more important. So just because there's a high number of total fat doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad product if it doesn't have any of that trans or saturated fat. You could be getting lots of healthy fats in that product. So then we go down through the list and we have cholesterol listed on each of the two labels. Sodium is listed on each of the two labels, and it's pretty straightforward. Lots of people are already comfortable looking at sodium on labels because lots of us are already very salt conscious. I just want to remind everybody that the maximum amount of salt that anybody should be eating in a day is 2,300 milligrams. So definitely make sure you're taking a look at sodium, make sure you're keeping track in the day. You don't want to be eating products that have, 1,500, 2,000 milligrams of sodium, because that means you'll definitely go over for the day, most likely. So then we have total carbohydrates, and under that, you'll often see it broken down into fibers and sugars. You want nice high numbers of fiber. Fiber is really good for us. And you typically want to see lower numbers of sugar. Sugar can be tricky though, because there's two different kinds of sugar. There's natural sugar, which is a little bit of a healthier sugar, and there's added sugar, which is kind of like the Domino white sugar you use at home. So what's nice about the old label is that it always tells you how much sugar is in a product. So imagine that you are looking at a strawberry yogurt and it says there's 12 grams of sugar. You're like, okay. Some of those sugars might be natural from the milk in the yogurt. Some of those sugars might be natural from the fruit in the yogurt. And it's hard to know how much sugar the company added to the product. If it has the new label, the label comes with a little bit of an added bonus in the sugar category. If you go down to number 4 on the new label, you'll actually see that underneath total sugars, it tells you how much of that sugar is an added sugar, which again is typically the less healthy sugar. It doesn't come with nutrients the way that natural sugars do. So again, I'll pretend it's a strawberry yogurt. So I'm looking at it and you can see that there's 12 grams of sugar and you're like, okay, maybe that's high. It's hard to know. But underneath that, you see that 10 out of those 12 grams are added sugar. So a lot of the sugar in the yogurt is like that table sugar without too many nutrients. So that might be a product that you might want to avoid. If it had said total of 12 sugars and that only includes 1 gram of added sugar, that would mean that most of the sugars in the product were somewhat healthier sugars. They came from a natural source and it might not be as bad for you depending on your diet. So I will read the blurb about added sugars over on the side and it goes into the next column. So it says added sugars in grams and as a percent daily value is now required on the label. Added sugars include sugars that have been added during processing or packaging of a food. Scientific data shows that it is difficult to meet nutrient needs while staying within calorie limits if you consume more than 10% of your total daily calories from added sugar. So basically they're saying if we're getting too much added sugar, there's a good chance we're getting not enough of other important nutrients. So that leads us to number 5, nutrients. So this is another thing that's slightly different on the two labels. So both labels cover iron and calcium, and otherwise they're a little different. The older label will always show vitamin A and vitamin C. The newer label will typically show vitamin D and potassium. At the time that each of the two labels were originally developed, those were some of the nutrients that, those were some of the nutrients that the average American may have been deficient in. So that's what they want us to be looking for. That being said, those are just the base requirements, and you'll see lots and lots of foods and lots of companies add way more than that on the label. You'll often be able to see different vitamin Bs and stuff like that as you go down the list. So I'll read the blurb off to the side for that as well. It says, the lists of nutrients that are required or permitted on the label have been updated. Vitamin D and potassium are now required on the label because Americans do not always get the recommended amounts. Vitamin A and C are no longer required since deficiencies of these vitamins are rare today. The actual amount in grams, in addition to the percent daily value, must be listed for vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. That's on the new label. The daily values for nutrients have also been updated based on newer scientific evidence. The daily values are referenced to the amount of nutrients to consume or not to exceed and are used to calculate the percent daily value. So basically, if in the past they thought we needed a certain amount of vitamin A, they may have now realized we actually need more or less of that, and they adjusted it accordingly. So lastly, we have the footnote. The footnote itself, I will read to you, says the percent daily value tells you how much a nutrient in a serving of food contributes to a daily diet of 2,000 calories. 2,000 calories a day is used for general nutrition advice. So basically, this is the reminder that if you eat 2,000 calories a day, then all the information they've given you, if you look over at those little percents, for example, I'll pick on added sugars. So if you eat exactly 2,000 calories a day, that 20% right there applies to you. It means if you eat a serving of this product, you will have eaten 20% of the sugar that you're supposed to eat in the day. So that is useful if you actually eat 2,000 calories a day. However, many people eat anywhere between 1,500 and 2,500 calories a day. So if that is the case, just try to focus on the numbers of grams and milligrams rather than the percents. So all of that being said, I will switch over to a different screen I would like to share with everyone, where I'm going to reiterate some of this in a different format. So typically if we were in a group all together, we'd play a little game, but I will just run through and give everybody a minute or two to think about each question if you think you know the answer. So the first one, on the food label, this tells you the percent of a certain nutrient in a food based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So what on the food label does that for us? That is the percent daily value. So again, that is the piece of information that really only applies to you if you're eating exactly 2,000 calories a day. So this, found on the food label, is good for digestion and lowering bad cholesterol. It can be found in foods like whole grains. This is something you look for on the food label that you want to eat lots of because it's in whole grains and it's good for your body. And that's fiber. So you want nice high amounts of fiber if you can. This piece tells you the portion size that all the nutrition facts are based on. So it tells you how much you have to eat in order for all these numbers to be correct. And that's the serving size. So if you want to know how much you're supposed to eat, you look right at the serving size. This nutrient, which is listed on the food label, should be limited to 2,300 milligrams a day. On average, Americans are consuming 3,400 per day. This nutrient is also known as salt. So what are we looking for? That would be sodium. So again, we want to aim for 2,300 milligrams or less. Like the last slide said, we are often eating more than that. So if you're not in the habit of checking your food labels, start giving it a look. Sometimes you'll find salt in unexpected places. So this on the food label is a measure of energy in your food. Any ideas? It's the calories. So if something has 200 calories, basically what that means is that food has 200 bits of energy that you're gonna have to work off. So if you've got a big meal behind you, then you could potentially have more energy. That's why we say eating breakfast is very important. If you go too long without eating, it causes you to have less energy. That's because you're not putting calories into your body. So where do we find fats per single serving? at the total fat. So underneath it, it breaks down into other types of fat, but if you're just looking for, hey, how much is in here, you go right to the total. If you want to know how many portion sizes there are in the entire package, what are you going to look for? So you want to know how many times can I eat this food before I run out? You're going to look at the servings per container. So for example, one slice of bread might be a serving, but there might be 10 servings in your bag. Or if you bought rolls, one roll is a serving, but it probably came in a 6-pack. So there's 6 servings in this container. So then I has many functions like rebuilding cells or providing energy. Can be found in meats, fish, some dairy, and nuts. This is towards the bottom of the label. Protein. So if you're eating an animal product, nuts, beans, peas, and you want to know how much protein you're getting out of those, go down and take a look at the protein category. It's nice and simple. It doesn't break down, doesn't break down into any other numbers or anything like that. So then we have unhealthy fats, typically found in red meat, high fat dairy, etc. Contributes to high cholesterol. So these are those unhealthy fats I mentioned that are often listed underneath total fats. And those are the saturated and the trans fats. So you really want to keep your eye on those as best you can. And you want to avoid trans fats as much as you possibly can, especially. So then we have sugars included, but not natural to the product. Can be found in baked goods, especially like cakes, muffins, etc. So if you are looking at a product and you want to know how much sugar is in it that's not natural, where on the label should you look? That would be the added sugars. If it's the old label, it is unfortunately still all just lumped together in sugars, but take a look. Last one I have here. These get broken down into glucose or sugar for energy. They're healthy in the recommended amount, so if you eat the right portion, basically. So what is that if you're looking on the food label? That is the total carbohydrate. So if you want to know how many carbs are in a serving of what you're eating, that's where you want to look. And that's something that a lot of people look at if they're diabetic or counting their sugars. It might be something you're more comfortable looking at. So that's everything I had for food labels. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get a hold of myself or your personal nutrition health educator. Please get a hold of us with any questions or concerns you may have. Have a good day.